morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Friday, July 26th, 2019.
Good morning, President James, Commissioners Garcia, Cabello, Davis, and we have a quorum. Our President, we have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Street Services.
Good morning, Tim Tyson, Bureau Street Services, Streets LA.
Good morning, it's Mahesh Pujari from Sanitation.
Good morning, Udi Jimenez, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, John Olinger, Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Eddie Chavez, Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
TJ Knight, Assistant Executive Officer. I'd just like to clarify that all commissioners are here for a quorum. President James, Commissioners Garcia, Cabello, Davis, and Close are present.
Thank you, and welcome, Mr. Knight. Let's go ahead and start with general public comment. Mr. Sachs. Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much. I hope all of you are well. For the record, Arnold Sachs. Next week, City Council comes back. I'm really looking forward to that. Hearing all their stories about all the heavy lifting they did while they were on their monthly vacation, or wait, not heavy lifting, and their tales of daring do. And I'm looking forward to having Herbie back in the house. It's going to be interesting. I hope they come back with as much enthusiasm. I went to a meeting on Wednesday night at Metro for the Citizens Advisory Committee. There was some enthusiasm going on in that meeting. It was off the charts. The chairperson, he really had that room fired up. So I'm hoping City Council comes back with as much energy as he had. He did the most amazing speaking engagement I've heard since Mark Ridley Thomas started talking. It was fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating that he spent an hour and 20 minutes talking about nothing. So when City Hall comes back with that same enthusiasm, we know what we can look forward to. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. That'll close general public comment as well as the neighborhood council category of commentary. Agenda item number 7 is a stop payment notice. Blue Diamond Materials transmitting a stop payment notice in the amount of $5,650.34 for furnishing supply asphalt for mineral aggregates to Hardy and Harper Incorporated, the apparent subcontractor, in connection with the Davies Way Bulkhead Project. The primary contractor for the project is Ortiz Enterprises. Is there a second to my motion that we receive agenda item number 7 forthwith by Commissioner Cabello? Any objection? Without objection, we will do so. Agenda item number 6 is the release of a stop payment notice. Pavement Recycling Systems Incorporated is transmitting a stop payment notice in the amount of $3,918 for furnishing work, labor, services, equipment, or material of the kind generally subscribed as cold milling and pulverizing in connection with the North Outfall Sewer Rehabilitation Unit 18 Colorado Boulevard to Doran Street project. The primary contractor is Spinello Companies. Is there a second to my motion that we receive agenda item number 6 forthwith? By Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we will do so. Agenda item number 5 is the release of a stop payment notice to Crisp Company. They've transmitted the release of the stop payment notice in the amount of $26,001.40 for furnishing highway improvement product installations in connection with the Riverside Drive near Zoo Drive Bridge over Los Angeles River project. The primary contractor is Ortiz Enterprises. Mr. Sachs, you put in a card on number 5.
Thank you again. For the record, Arnold Sachs. And, you know, I told myself I wasn't going to take any shots at Metro, so I really don't want to say anything about Metro, especially after the meeting. I heard some things happen at the board meeting yesterday. I didn't attend. I got into some personal business. But there was something I heard on the agenda about them appointing some council representatives. Now, let me get to this. What is Metro involved in this? I remember reading one of your reports that Metro is, you have a Metro Street Services division and part of your Bureau of Street Services there was an item about the gold line and a underground storage tank that involved Metro. So I was just wondering, are they involved in this project, and why is the city, if it's a Metro street, why is the city paying for the funding? What is this coming from, like Measure M, Measure R funding? A little bit more clarity on this. My Metro story will have to wait.
Thank you, sir. This is the release of a stop payment notice. Is there a second to my motion that we receive agenda item number 5 forthwith by Commissioners Caloza and Davis? Any objection? And Garcia. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 5. We already sent it forthwith. Agenda item number 4, a tree removal in Council District 13, 5750 West Hollywood Boulevard. Recommending that the board first certify that the board has reviewed and considered the information in the draft environmental impact report. State clearinghouse number is in the agenda notice for the project at 5750 West Hollywood Boulevard, and find the information contained therein appropriately addresses the requested tree removals. Secondly, find that the project will not have a significant environmental effect under the above described EIR, as the imposition of the mitigation measures described in the EIR and incorporated herein as project conditions, and that there is no substantial evidence the proposed project will have a significant effect on the environment pursuant to the city's environmental guidelines and is in compliance with state CEQA. Third, find the project's conflict with any local policies or ordinances protecting biological resources, such as tree preservation policies or ordinances, is less than significant with the incorporation of mitigation measures 4-E as contained in the EIR. Fourth, specify that Street Services, Streets LA, Urban Forestry Division, located at 1149 South Broadway in Los Angeles, is custodian of the documents or other material that constitute the record of proceedings upon which the board's decision is based. Fifth, concur with Streets LA determination that the site cannot feasibly accommodate all of the required replacement trees, which we'll hear about, and pursuant to LAMC 62177C, authorize the tree replacement guarantee fee to satisfy the Public Works planning requirement. And sixth, approve the request for a fee tree removal permit to remove 2 Mexican fan palm trees and 2 evergreen pear trees. Tree replacements are required. Mr. Sachs on number 4.
Yes, thank you again for the record, Arnold Sachs. And I have a couple things with this one. I guess the project determined that they had to remove the trees because the trees were too big to replace. The replacement trees were too big. It says 4 trees, by the way. Could they have gotten an easement if they had used smaller trees? Would they have been granted an easement prior to getting before Public Works? Or if they had decided to plant smaller trees for this? And if they had planted smaller trees, what would happen with the fee? They wouldn't have to pay the fee. So what would be the fee for this not planting the trees? And then what is the project? It doesn't say anything about the project. You know, the county has a project posted for the area around Vermont and Western along Imperial Highway. It just says they're going to build 1,100 new homes and do 13 million square feet of commercial space, but they don't really name what the project's going to be. It's important to find out what these projects are so that you have a chance to ask questions about them. This could be anything. It sounds like this is going to be another condominium built at this intersection in Hollywood, or West Hollywood Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Agenda item number 4, Mr. Tyson. And by the way, we have representatives for the applicant here if we have questions. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, President James, Commissioners, Bureau Representatives, City Attorney, and Executive Officer. If I could, before I start and read this into the public record, if I could have the Commissioners pull out transmittal number 6, 10, and 11. That way, as I go along through the report, you'll be able to see what I'm reporting about.
Oh, we'll show and tell this morning.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Tyson.
Okay.
We're very eager.
5750 Hollywood Boulevard LLC is constructing a 7-story mixed-use development located at 5750 West Hollywood Boulevard. The development includes 161 units, including 5 live work or shopkeeper units and 14 affordable housing units. In order to develop the 7-story complex, the developer determined the need to provide an area for material staging and logistical support. The project requires installation and use of a crane with the radius reaching to the material staging areas needed to hoist building material and equipment. Mr. Joe Gambill, property owner's representative, contacted the Bureau of Street Services, Streets LA, requesting the project site be inspected to determine the relationship between the proposed construction and address any impacts to street trees. A Streets LA arborist inspected the subject location on May 28, 2019, and determined the project's impact to any existing street trees at that time. The inspection revealed 4 Mexican fan palm trees and 2 evergreen pear trees growing in front of the site. The trees are in fair health, measuring 4 to 20 inches in diameter by 15 to 50 feet in height, planted in 4-foot tree wells. 2 of the 4 palm trees growing on the west section of the site are within the radius of the designated material staging area, and if left to remain, will interfere with the safe hoisting and access to delivered material, supplies, and equipment from the material staging area. The 2 evergreen pear trees are growing within and directly adjacent to the footprint of the proposed driveway. The developer will need to install a new driveway and utilize the street and sidewalk space along West Hollywood Boulevard for multiple construction activities, including staging for large crane, excavators, dump trucks, and logistic support. The driveway installation and material staging area will require the removal of the 2 palm trees and the 2 evergreen pear trees. The 2 remaining Mexican fan palm trees shall remain in place. The 13th Council District was informed of the tree removal permit request on July 15, 2019. The Council Office will inform any persons inquiring of the opportunity to be heard at the board, public hearing, and the tree removal permit request. The applicant shall plant 2 Mexican fan palm Washington robusta with a minimum of 20 feet brown trunk and 5 evergreen pear trees. 2 additional trees needed to meet the board's 2-to-1 tree replacement policy cannot be feasibly planted on site. Therefore, pursuant to LAMC section 62177, the applicant shall pay the tree guarantee replacement fees for the extra trees to complete the 2-to-1 replacement. The applicant shall provide watering to the planted on-site tree locations for a minimum of 3 years. This will fulfill the board's 2-to-1 tree replacement policy. And if you go to transmittal number 11, you can see the radius of the crane, which will be in the center of the property, and where the trees are located will be the material staging area where the trucks have to drive up. They have to have some way to get off the street, so this is actually the safest way to do this for the people who are constructing the building, as well as all the public who are trying to maneuver their way around this while it's happening. And if you go to transmittal number 10, you can see that these are the 2 evergreen pear trees. The cones are sitting in the street to show you the width of the driveway. The trees are right in the width of the driveway. Transmittal number 6 is the addendum to the EIR, the draft EIR, and the EIR that includes the street trees, which had not been included prior, but were included afterwards, showing no significant impact. And if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Tyson. Commissioner Cabello.
Thank you, President James. I think I have a question for the project's representative, just to put some items on the record.
Sure.
So, Mr. Green, if you don't mind coming up to the podium.
That would be Aaron Green, sir. Welcome.
Morning, Honorable Commissioners. Aaron Green on behalf of Wood Partners, the applicant.
So just for the record, I know this is in the board report, but I think it's helpful for the oral record. Can you talk a little bit about the development?
Sure. So the development is a 161-unit mixed-use project located on Hollywood Boulevard, just at the basically the intersection of Hollywood and the 101. It's got 14 very low-income units. This project is a density bonus project that my firm entitled a couple of years ago. When we entitled this project, we did a very significant amount of community outreach on the project. We went not only door to door in the neighborhood in 3 different languages, but we also worked with our neighborhood councils. We received endorsements from 2 neighborhood councils because this project is in close proximity to a second Hollywood neighborhood council, even though it's not in it.
Which 2 neighborhood councils?
Hollywood,
Hollywood Hills West?
no.
Okay.
Hollywood Studio
United?
District and Hollywood United.
Okay.
And would just note for the record that this project was approved without appeal, so there was no notable opposition. And we had some issues that we worked through with the neighborhood council, the Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council, which was how we got to that consensus.
Great. And are these condominiums, are these rental units? What kind of units are these?
These are all rental units, and as Mr. Tyson noted, on the ground floor we have some very unique components. So we have what are called shopkeeper units. These kind of harken back to the 50s, where you had the butcher who had his store on the ground floor, and then he had his apartment up, he or she had his apartment up, well, in the 50s it was he. And
Mr. Green, 1 second.
yes, sir.
We had some young people here that are visiting. I just wanted to say, hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to City Hall. We're the Board of Public Works on the Department of Public Works. We're in session every Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning, and we're talking about a development that's requested some tree removal so they can begin construction. And we do all this in the light of day and transparent public hearings. So thank you for visiting today. Thanks. Go ahead, sir.
The 5 shopkeeper units are intended to be local businesses, neighborhood serving. They're approximately 1,000 square foot each, so these are not large retail businesses. Our client is focused on hopefully local artisans coming in or other sort of creative services in the neighborhood, something that's not a typical retail store. So businesses and residents that are tied to the community.
It's a really interesting model. I think that is something very unique about the development. And last question for you. Can you just state for the record whether or not the council office is in support of the project and of the tree removals as well?
Council offices, I spoke with council office yesterday, in fact, and just informed them directly, and they have no objections, support the project, would like to see construction continue as expeditiously as possible, and would request on behalf of my client that if you decide to approve this, that you would send it forthwith so that we can stay on our construction schedule.
Thank you so much, Mr. Green. So, Mr. Sachs, you got all the context you needed. Appreciate it.
One more thing, Mr. Green. I heard of 14 affordable units, I think is in the board report. That's roughly 10% almost?
It's 9% of the total units,
okay,
but it was larger than 9% of the base units.
Okay.
So 161 units and 14 very low-income units. So it's folks that are making around $30,000 to $35,000 a year. So real low-income housing.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Davis.
Is that a set aside for affordable housing in terms of those that you have? How much is it, 10% set aside, or how much of the stock is it?
In terms of the percentage of the total project?
Yes, correct.
It's around 9%.
Oh, it's 9%.
Yes, it's about 9%. Those are covenanted units with the City of Los Angeles, so they're guaranteed for at least 55 years.
Sure.
And so it's a...
Great. I think that more of our workforce housing and regular housing units should be doing that, and it will help considerably in terms of the affordable housing units that we need, even though we may need more direct affordable housing unit in total on some projects. I think for mixed-use projects like yours is really commendable when we're able to realize those affordable set-asides that you have.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Commissioner Caballo's made a motion that we adopt agenda item number 4, seconded by Commissioners Caloza and Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 4. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Mr. Tyson, as well. Any issue sending number 4 forthwith? We'll send number 4 forthwith. Agenda item number 1. No. Agenda item, I want to go to the CAT EIR, which is, it is number 1. Task order solicitation number EMGD 025, Environmental Documentation Services for the citywide CAT program, recommending that the board first authorize the city engineer to utilize funding in the amount of $166,000 for the task for solicitation to ICF Jones and Stokes Incorporated to provide environmental documentation services for the citywide CAT program as stated in task order solicitation EMGD 25. Ms. Green-Rebstock, go right ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Jan Green-Rebstock with the Environmental Management Group of the Bureau of Engineering, and I'm joined this morning by Brenda Barnett, who's the General Manager of the Animal Services Department. And we're here to talk to you about funding for the citywide CAT program Environmental Impact Report. On March 16, 2018, this board authorized $966,855.32 to prepare an environmental impact report for the proposed citywide CAT program for the use of the Animal Services Department. At that time, $166,000 of the funds had not been identified. Since then, $166,000 was appropriated from the general fund to the engineering special services fund in the 2018-19 adopted budget. And so we are here now to ask for you to authorize the use of those funds for the purposes of the EIR. There's no increase in the total budget that was authorized in March.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Cabello?
Thank you, President James. Just wanted to follow up on a conversation we had offline yesterday for the public record as well as to the anticipated date for the draft EIR for public comment and review.
Sure. So I'll take a little step back and give a very, very brief history about how we got here. And for those that might not know, in 2005, the Animal Services Department did start to implement a sterilization program for free-roaming cats. So those are stray or feral cats within the city of Los Angeles, and they were following a trap, neuter, and return policy. In 2008, the city was sued because and in 2010, the LA Superior Court issued an injunction against the city, prohibiting the city from further implementing that policy without preparing a CEQA document. Okay, in 2013, a mitigated negative declaration was prepared, but the city decided ultimately to move forward with a draft EIR. And the scoping process for that new environmental review started in August 2017. So we had a 30-day public comment period, we had 3 public meetings, and people are now anticipating the release of the result of all of that work and the technical studies and input that we received from the scoping process, which should be around this time frame. So there's a high expectation that that would be happening, and third quarter 2019, it will be coming out. It's imminent. It's coming soon. So we're moving forward with that target in mind. And when it is released, there will be a 60-day public review period.
Excellent. I know that there are a lot of activists, I'm sure Ms. Barnett is well aware, that are very interested in this issue and very eager to give their input in the draft EIR, so I appreciate your explanation and also the time frame, so third quarter of this year. Perfect. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I would only say welcome, Ms. Barnett. Thank you for coming over this morning. As you all know, there's a lot of interest in this, and so I'm happy to accept Commissioner Cabello's motion moving this forward in honor of her cat. Who's perfect and neutered, and I will for the record, exactly. And I in honor of my spayed dachshund. So that'll be the motion in the second. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 1. Thank you both. Any issues sending number 1 forthwith? We'll send number 1 forthwith. Agenda item number 2, Council District 6, requested budget increase for change order numbers 31 through 47 and supplemental change order number 48 to Ford EC Incorporated. This is a capital improvement project at 6171. Well, it is the capital improvement project 6171 at the Donald C. Tillman Water Reclamation Plant Blower Air Cleanup System project. Recommending that the board first authorize $1,521,000 in additional contingency and approve a revised construction budget of $7,453,300 for the project, and extend the contract duration by 334 days from 560 calendar days to 894 calendar days. Secondly, authorize the city engineer to issue change order numbers 31 through 46 for a not to exceed amount of $353,756 for this project to compensate the contractor for extra work. Third, authorize the city engineer to issue final supplemental agreement change order number 47 to Ford for a not to exceed amount of $720,000. Again, that's the final supplemental agreement change order for $720,000 for the project to implement additional improvements that will enhance the odor control features of the project. And finally, authorize the city engineer to issue change order number 48 for a not to exceed amount of $367,400 for the project to compensate the contractor for extended overhead associated with a time extension necessary to complete all remaining and additional work described herein. And the board report indicates it is probably a 70% increase in time. Mr. Cirillo will talk more about that after Mr. Sachs on number 2, sir.
Yes, thank you again. For the record, Arnold Sachs. I have a couple of different things about this. So this is going to be to help clean up the air, keep these guys forward on your Rolodex for odor control features. I'm, though, concerned more about a project that was just canceled by the mayor, the Scattergood Rehabilitation Plant. Is this cleanup going to be like generational? Scattergood, they did all this work on the air intake, the water intake, so that because it was federal mandated, they put in air intake, clean air intake towers to allow them to continue the work. They did all this upgrading work, and now the mayor has just canceled it. Why didn't they cancel? They knew about the solar. Why did they do the work? It's just about planning here. So I'm worried, is this going to be a generational type thing where it's going to last for 50, 60 years or 70 years or longer? And by the way, what will happen to Scattergood now? Just bad planning by the people in charge. We need to have a better idea. The public should be more informed of, what exactly they mean by future deadlines to meet the air quality standards that are imposed by the state and the governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Mr. Cirillo on number 2. I'm sorry, Mr. Cirillo on number 2.
Yes. Good morning, Mike Cirillo with the Bureau of Engineering. Let me start out with a little background on the odor control system at Tillman before I get into the details of the report. So traditionally, odor control at DCT was accomplished by extracting the foul air from the headworks and primary tanks, and it's basically sent via blowers to some fine bubble diffusers in the aeration tanks. That was prior to this project. That's how we would handle odor control at Tillman. But since that air is very dirty and contains a lot of H2S and particulates, what was happening was the diffusers were being plugged. They would get fouled and require excessive acid washing to maintain the diffusers. But more importantly, the blowers were experiencing some buildup on the vanes of the blowers, which could reduce the performance of the blowers and or reduce the lifespan of the blowers. Additionally, the H2S is corrosive and it could damage the blowers. So what sanitation's had to do on a regular basis is hire the blower company to come in and disassemble the blowers to clean the vanes, and also, as I mentioned, clean the diffusers because of the dirty air quality that's being sent through the blowers. So these are 5 blowers that operate at DCT. They were replaced in 2011, and they're very expensive. They're $10 million for 5 of those blowers. So it's really important to protect them, obviously, to make sure they don't degrade and or get their lifespan reduced. So they contain a 3-stage filtration system. However, sanitation wanted us to construct this project, 6171, which is the blower air cleanup project, to further protect the blowers, which would remove the H2S and other particulates out of the airstream using a biotrickling filter, so without the use of chemicals, and that would make the air clean, so then the blowers would be protected from any kind of foul air or damage. So that's just a little background on how we got here. Now I'll talk about the project itself. So since the project was requested to be constructed, the Bureau of Engineering designed this project. This is going to be an inline system, and it's in construction right now. However, throughout the course of construction, several issues came up, and I can group those into three categories. First of all is utilities were not well documented, and we could not find accurate as-built at a lot of the sites. So when we got into construction and started excavating for foundation work, we discovered a lot of undocumented utilities, which resulted in an unforeseen condition or a change order. Secondly, we did determine some errors in our design. We missed some pipe supports and various things in our design, and consequently we have to pay the contractor to install those items under change order. And lastly, sanitation required some enhancements to the design that would increase the air capture, allow them to balance the system more efficiently, and ease the maintenance of the system. And lastly, it would reduce the odor complaints. They've recently been getting odor complaints from residents in that area, so they believe that if we installed some extra runs and draw some foul air from different parts of the process, it would result in a reduction of odor complaints. So that was also a request by sanitation. So as a result of those three categories I talked about, there are several change orders that are necessary in order for construction to complete and in order to start up and have successful operation of the facility. Additionally, because the change orders will exceed 25% of the contract value, we have to do what's known as a supplemental agreement, which is something that the contractor will sign and basically waive their rights to renegotiate the terms of the contract. Anytime change orders exceed 25%, the contractor, unless they sign a supplemental agreement, can renegotiate the entire terms of the contract, I believe. Mr. Jordan will correct me if I'm wrong on that. Additionally, we need to do a time extension because of the significant changes involved here. The contractor needs additional time to complete, and we'll be compensating the contractor for extended overhead. And last thing I want to mention is I want to emphasize that this is a not-to-exceed amount for this board report. So the number you've seen here is the worst-case scenario, so to speak. So we're going to have our estimators put together independent estimates, and then we'll sit down with the contractor through extensive negotiations to try to bring the cost down as much as we can. With that, I'll take any questions.
Yet again, another thorough, excellent report from Mr. Cirillo.
Thank you.
Let me just say this. You stole a little bit of my approach, which I'm happy you did. I was just going to say, whenever we have an amount like this for change orders, sometimes there's a misunderstanding. Sometimes it's the public and sometimes it's the contractors that, oh, if the Board of Public Works approves this amount of money, that's the amount of money we can negotiate to. Not the case. And what my really request is for you to bring this back under the amount that the board's approving today. That's a range for you to work within, but this is given really the entire explanation, Mr. Cirillo, that you've provided to the board, that you provided to me in my briefing on this. I think this is something that this is definitely a ceiling, and we ought to be able to bring this home a little cheaper. So I would certainly appreciate that work. And I know that the change order numbers on this a little higher than we usually have. It's a little unique, this project, but we keep our change order percentages with BOE real low. It's a big agency in a big city, lots of projects, and some of these are going to occur. So, but we appreciate the explanation. With that, I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 2, seconded by Commissioners Caloza, Garcia, and Davis. Thank you, sir.
Great, thank you.
Any objection? With that objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 2. Any issue sending 2 forthwith? We'll send number 2 forthwith. Agenda item number 3, Council District 14, budget revision, construction and maintenance agreements, 6th Street Viaduct Replacement Project. Recommending that the board authorize the city engineer to increase the not-to-exceed cost ceiling to enter into design service agreements with C&M agreements and rights of entry from $10,690,000 to $16,370,295. By the way, these are big figures But a reminder, again, we're talking about the 6th Street Viaduct project, which is roughly a $500 million project, give or take, and to process and deliver all payments related to working on the property of each of the following 5 railroad agencies: Amtrak, BNSF, Metro, SCRRA, and UPRR. And by the way, the railroad agreements, and we'll get into this, the railroad agreements have been, I think, were some of the most difficult, they were the most difficult negotiation that we had collectively as a city in connection with this project. Although Julia can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but at least for me it was in the reviewing that we did some years ago. Secondly, forward the report with transmittals to the mayor and city council, requesting authority to act under design services agreements, C&M agreements, and rights of entry between the City of Los Angeles and each of the following 5 railroads: Amtrak, BNSF, Metro, SCRRA, and UPRR through December 31, 2023 for the project. And the first thing you can do, Julia, is tell us what C&M agreements mean. C&M. Oh, before you do that, well, go ahead and tell us that, and then we'll have Mr. Sachs, because he might ask that question.
I'd be happy to. Good morning. Julia Moy, Bureau of Engineering. C&M agreements, those are construction and maintenance agreements. They're entered into with each railroad. They establish the responsibilities of both the city and the railroads during and after construction of the viaduct.
Okay.
To give you a little background.
Thank you. And we'll have Mr. Sachs, and then we'll bring you back up.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you again. For the record, Arnold Sachs. I'm Arnold Sachs for the record. I wasn't going to ask that question, but I appreciate you bringing it up, President James. But what I was going to ask is the SCRA, SCRRA is the Southern California Regional Rail Association. And Amtrak is part of SCRA, the Southern California Regional Rail Association. And Metro is part of the same association. So why are they all getting funds if they're all part of the Southern California Regional Rail Association? And vice versa, Southern California Regional Rail Association is part of Metro, because Metro supplies funding to them through tax funds, sales tax revenue. There's no sales tax revenue. Amtrak and Southern California Regional Rail Association did not put sales tax measures on the ballot to be voted for those particular lines. They did it for Metro, and so Metro supplies the funding. They're part of Metro. Shouldn't there just be 3 agencies on this property? Burlington Northern Santa Fe, Southern California Regional Rail Association, and Union Pacific. And then, what about high-speed rail? Will high-speed rail have any impact on this bridge, or will they be involved in any of the construction? Because that's another agency. Link Union Station. That's another agency that nobody's really heard about. But they're big in New York City. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Moy, welcome back, Julia.
Thank you. Julia Moy again, Bureau of Engineering. So this is with Council District 14 for the 6th Street Viaduct. The city engineer, we're seeking authority for him to enter into various agreements. At this point, C&M maintenance agreement amendments for the project, increasing the current board authority from approximately $10.7 million to $16,370,295. That's an increase of $5,680,295. Furthermore, we requested the board forward this report with transmittal to the mayor and council, asking authority to act under the agreements for a period of up to 8 years, no later than through the end of 2023. To give you a little background, the board first authorized in November 2014 the city engineer to enter into agreements for a not to exceed amount of $6.5 million. About a year later, in December of 2015, after the agreements had been negotiated, the board authorized the city engineer's authority to increase to $10.5 million. And then approximately another year later, in January of 2017, authorized a minor increase of less than $200,000 to accommodate a first supplemental agreement with UPRR for weekend curfews. Around this time of the last increase to the railroad authority, the board authorized the issuance of Package 5. That was for construction of the viaduct superstructure. And this moved what was the anticipated completion date of the project from December 2019 through December 2020, and also extended SSW's contract by 2 years through the end of 2021. Currently, the project has experienced delays as we've reported quarterly to the board, and the anticipated completion date as of the latest schedule update is March 2022. And that would equate to completion of activities over the East Railroad tracks, UPRR and SCARA, in July of 21, and completion of work over the West Railroad corridor of tracks, including, again, SCARA, who's also on this side of the river, BNSF, Amtrak, and Metro, in September of 2021. So due to this extension of the project, we need to extend the C&M agreements. When they were entered, as I mentioned, it was anticipated the project would complete in December 2019. And as of today, it's looking to be March of 2022. So originally, because the duration of the agreements was anticipated to be under 5 years, we did not seek council authority to enter into those agreements. At this time, we requesting this be forwarded to council to act under these agreements potentially up to 8 years through the end of 2023. And the ceiling increase we're requesting of almost $6 million is predominantly to compensate the 5 rail agencies for flagging support of the project. Whenever we're doing work in and adjacent to their right-of-way, we need to have flagmen there to protect the railroad's facilities, protect our workers, protect and advise about trains that will be coming through the project area. When we negotiated the original agreements, it was anticipated this would be a 5-day-a-week single shift schedule. Once Package 5, the viaduct, was awarded, that was awarded with 6-day double shift work, predominantly for the length of the project. So that added significantly to the flagging needs. We've also had additional increases to the flagging based upon, acts of God, weather, different instances, based upon situations where we request flagging, plan to do work, but unfortunately due to parked rail cars or rail traffic, we're unable to proceed with the work as anticipated. And there have been cases where the contractor has planned to do work and flagger is secured, and unfortunately for various reasons the contractor doesn't complete that work as planned. I would like to note that there is no fiscal impact to the general fund for this increase. There is funding available within Package 2, construction package, unutilized contingency for that package, that was the demolition package, as well as within our right-of-way budget. So this money will be fully reimbursable from the HBP, the Highway Bridge Program funding, as well as State Proposition 1B. All these expenses for flagging are on a reimbursable basis. So this is, a budget ceiling, and we will only be reimbursing the rail agencies for actual expenses incurred. I'd be happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Moy. You know from our meeting kind of where my frustration is with this. It's certainly not with you, and it's not with you all are doing a great job on this, and you're always such a welcome presenter to our board. But just sitting back during our briefing and just doing some simple math regarding the cost per hour for the flagging services, it's really expensive. I know we don't have a choice. I got it. So I'm optimistic that with recognizing that some of this, that we're not having to increase the overall budgets coming out of contingency from Project 2, and also recognizing that probably unlikely, but we have a shot at some reimbursement, that take your best swing at some reimbursement funding here, because colleagues, just doing some calculation, we're spending on most shifts around $100 an hour for flagging. I recognize that there are some safety concerns in that job. You are in a potentially dangerous area, and there is compensation for jobs like that. But it still seems, given those circumstances, to me anyway, that we were bound to spend significant flagging costs. It's not the first time I've raised this on this project and this issue. What was disappointing to me is that we've had to come back with so much more of it on what I thought was something that was overly priced anyway. But as I said in the beginning, to set this up a little bit, negotiations with the railroads around this project was just a real bear. So thank you, and thanks for the update on this. And we'll keep our fingers crossed on as much reimbursement as possible. Is there a motion on agenda item number 3 by Commissioners Davis and a second by Commissioner Caloza? Any objection? With that objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 3. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any issue sending number 3 forthwith? We'll send agenda item number 3 forthwith. Yes. Okay. Commissioner Cabello.
Yes, before we do our oral reports, colleagues, I just would like to take a point of personal privilege to personally welcome Mr. Knight. I understand how difficult it is to be a substitute for someone who's been doing this every day for about 6 years. So welcome. It gets easier. It gets better.
Thank you, Commissioner Cabello.
Thank you.
And with that, I will put on the table a voting item, our minutes, seconded by Commissioner Cabello for the meeting minutes of Monday, June 10th, 2019. Mr. Knight, that means that we have cleared the desk on voting items?
That is correct.
Okay, so let's take agenda item number 8, our stormwater capture update from sanitation. Oh, before you do that, Mr. Sachs, you did not have a card in on number 8. We'll get you on number 9. All right, go ahead. Yes, sir. Welcome back, sir.
Good morning, President James, Commissioners, Representatives, Executive Officer, City Attorney. My name is Kevin Ho, and I'll be giving the update for stormwater capture this quarter. So with the up-and-coming Safe Clean Water program, all of our groups have been working really hard on developing concept reports for all of our projects, from LID, distributed projects, and regional projects. Right now, currently this quarter, we have a bunch of distributed green streets and green alleys that we've been working on, and that'll hopefully be coming in the next coming months. Our LID group has been working very hard on approving all the private development plans that's been coming up in the city. Our office in the valley is up and coming. It's currently, I believe, understaffed, so we're only open a couple days during the week, but we're working on having it open more days. Moving on to our projects, quick updates for each one. Current one is, the first one is Van Nuys Boulevard Green Street. So this one was completed last quarter, and in this quarter, right now, it's in the optimization phase. So right now, all the construction is complete, and we're working on all the small tweaks to make sure that the project is working effectively. For Lancashire Boulevard Green Street, right now we're in the process of obtaining a new consultant for construction and construction management. This project is being combined with the following 3 projects in the next slide. Those are the Agnes Avenue, Victory Boulevard, and Glen Oaks Fillmore Boulevard. So these projects have been awarded to Geosyntec to manage the projects, and we are currently drafting the agreement and scope for these projects. So these projects, they will be probably in construction in the next 4 to 6 months. So there'll be a lot of work for those going on. The next projects that we are working on is the Quincy Jones Central Jefferson Green Alleys. So this project, we are working with the Trust for Public Land, and it is a collaboration to revitalize a bunch of alleyways in the South LA region. The Central Jefferson Green Alleys are in the southern part of this map. It is to renovate 12 alleys, and the plan is to put in trees, landscaping, and easy access to and from schools and other access points. The Quincy Jones Green Alley is going to revitalize 5 alleys and transform them to basically community assets. The next one is Bradley Plaza Green Alley. So this is finished with the design phase and now is moving on to the pre-construction phase. We're working with our contractors on construction setup and schedule, and we plan to start construction next quarter. For the Albion Riverside Greenway Park, this park was completed in March of 2019, and now we are also in the optimization phase where we are testing the infiltration tanks and stormwater collection facilities and training staff to operate the tanks so that the project will run smoothly. For a project that's still in construction right now, Argo Drain Sub-Basin Facility. Right now we are at 17% completion for construction. Some main updates for this quarter was the excavation of the pump station, building the divergent structure, and starting the formwork for the infiltration tank. Finally, one of the last few points is maintenance. So for some of these projects that are completed, they're in the optimization phase, which also includes some sort of maintenance that we have involved to basically gauge how much work we need to do for these projects and how often we need to maintain them. So for projects like, for example, the Van Nuys Great Street, for optimization, we have our ballast well planters and also our porous gutters. We've been observing how often they get dirty and clogged and how often we'll need to maintain them and the different methods we can use. So for these, we tried for our porous gutters, we vacuum cleaned them and pressure washed them to see which one was more effective. We found that pressure washing worked better. And then again, for these projects, we realized that they're only as effective of how often you maintain them. So maintenance is always a big part of these projects. And finally, sort of a heads up for the next coming months for board reports that's going to be coming to these board meetings. We have a bunch of other green alleys, green streets, and green improvement projects that's coming up. So just quickly naming off a couple: Slauson Green Alley, Kitty Hawk Green Walkway, Ben and Victory Green Street, and McCormick Green Improvements. So these, right now we are drafting reports, project reviews for these, and board reports should be coming soon.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. We love hearing about these projects, and getting an update on these projects is always helpful for us. I don't have any specific questions on them. Commissioner Davis?
Yes, Kevin, thank you very much for this report on green streets. In terms of, green streets. In terms of the funding for these projects, how do we obtain funding for each of these projects that you've mentioned?
So most of the projects and upcoming projects that I've discussed in this report have been funded already. A lot of the future projects that we are proposing are going to be funded by our Safe Clean Water program, which in a sense is the Measure W tax that was passed last year. So in that, we'll have a good inflow of money coming in, funding coming in to our projects. Some of them are guaranteed to our division. Some of them we need to apply for. And also we have other projects where we are applying for grants.
Great. Good. I appreciate the fact that we have been able to implement the program in various regions of the city. And even as we look at your future plans, I see that you have made sure that there is a balance of projects in various areas of the city, and I think that's really a great thing. So thank you so much for this report, and I look forward to your future presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, President James. I have a quick question. You mentioned in the beginning, and I didn't see it here, that you opened, there's an office open in the Valley. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so for our private LID group, we have two offices, one in downtown in Figueroa and one in the Valley. So right now, the one in downtown is fully staffed, and that's open every day during the week. The one in the Valley, I believe, from the last I heard, it was only open a couple days during the week because there wasn't enough staff and plans going to that office. So right now, we are working on opening or having the Valley office open more days during the week so people have more options to bring their plans to get it reviewed and approved.
For this specific type of projects?
Yeah, for the private low-impact development projects.
Okay, where is the office?
I'm not sure about the exact address for that address. I can get back to you on that.
Okay, send it to me, please. Okay. And also, when you do, can you also schedule a briefing so that I can get more details on all of these projects, specifically in the Valley, mostly?
In the Valley? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Any other questions for Mr. Ho? Thank you, sir.
Thank
the
you.
oral report will be received. Before we go to our Streets LA weekly update on major street improvement projects, I see that our Enforcement Bureau, under the direction of Chief Harris, has a guest today. Mr. Cavallo, welcome back, sir. Good to see you. All right, we'll be done with the meeting in a moment. Don't leave. I want to see you for a moment. All right, thank you. And that will take us to our Streets LA update. But before so, Mr. Sachs, you have a card in on number 9.
Yes, thank you again. For the record, Arnold Sachs, and Arnold Sachs for the record. And yeah, and I did have somewhat of a brain cramp when you were doing when I was looking at the stormwater capture update. I was wondering, I mentioned at the meeting on Wednesday that on the weekend before I was in Playa del Rey, they had a meeting about a gas well blowout. And so just thinking about this, what would it take to maybe get the DWP to come in and talk about what their status is as far as repairing the water lines under the city that seem to be breaking all the time? Would that be possible to be heard at the Department of Public Works, Board of Public Works? And along the same lines as the DWP, these people that lived in Playa del Rey, they had some real complaints about gas lines, the infrastructure that runs under the city streets. If you can have somebody from the Bureau of Sanitation check lines under the streets, wouldn't it behoove the city and the city council to maybe consider having these different agencies do, I guess, inspections of the lines that run under the streets and have them report back to the Board of Public Works or even the city council, so that people living in these areas that really don't know what's running under their streets have a better idea of what environmental concerns they might have, especially if you move into a neighborhood that, like Porter Ranch. People moved into the neighborhood, didn't even know that they were living near the largest gas storage facility west of the Mississippi. So I think it's important to have more departments come in and have updates on whatever repairs that need to happen. And also with the Bureau of Streets Improvements, I made a suggestion to somebody last week about... Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Aida Valencia. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning, President James, Commissioners, Bureau representatives, and Executive Secretaries. My name is Aida Valencia. I'm the Street Services Superintendent 2 for Resurfacing and Reconstruction in the Valley. I'm here today to inform you of some resurfacing projects that we will be having coming up, which might impact commuter traffic. So in the metro region, on Saturday and Sunday, they will be resurfacing Jefferson Boulevard North Roadway between, sorry, I need my glasses, between Centinela Avenue and Ala Road. The specific area they will be paving is Jefferson Boulevard North Roadway between Centinela and West Lawn. Next weekend, they will complete that project. In the Valley region, we will be working starting tonight at 10 p.m. and Saturday night at 10 p.m. on Olympic Boulevard between Bundy Drive and Centinela to the city line. These are resurfacing projects, which means we're only going to be doing overlays. We have sent out the press releases have gone out. We've contacted the council office and outreach to the stakeholders in this area. And we've also reached out to the Department of Transportation for any traffic support that we might need. And that's all we have going on. We will not have any impact during the week. This will all be done in the weekend.
Thank you, Ms. Valencia. Any questions for Streets LA? The oral report will be received. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank you. We have an adjourning motion. Commissioner Cabello.
Thank you, President James. Colleagues, I ask that we adjourn today in memory of Henry Lozano. Excuse me. Henry was a legendary political strategist, trusted advisor, advocate, and mentor to so many who had a profound impact on Latino politics and politicians in Los Angeles. He passed away peacefully on July 15th, 2019, with his family and close friends by his side. Born in Harlingen, Texas on October 1st, 1933, Henry was a son of the Rio Grande Valley. His father was a butcher and a railroad worker, and his mother was a homemaker and a mother of 8 children. As a child, he lived in El Barrio, Camposanto, and grew up tending to the cows, pigs, and chickens on his family's property. He learned the value of hard work at a young age when he began selling fruit and newspapers, and later worked as a caddy at the golf course 3 blocks from his home. Henry was forced to attend segregated Latino-only schools when an administrator wouldn't allow him to attend the elementary school closest to his home due to the color of his skin. This formative experience shaped his desire to become an advocate for those without a voice and with no power in society. With hopes for a better future, Henry learned to play golf and dreamed of becoming a professional golfer, but ended up leaving the Rio Grande Valley to join the U.S. Marine Corps, where he reached the rank of corporal and served his country in the Korean War from 1953 to 1957. Following the war, Henry moved to California and became involved with the labor movement in the 60s. He was a leader and organizer for the United Auto Workers Local 509 in Pico Rivera, where he fought to protect the rights of workers who felt unable to stand up for themselves. Henry organized workers and formed a union at E.B. Wiggins, an aerospace plant in East LA, while studying machinery at LA Trade Tech and East LA College. He spent decades behind the scenes in the East LA political scene, managing the campaigns of friends running for council seats in Pico Rivera, Montebello, and for the El Rancho Unified School District. From 1964 through the 70s, he was a member of the American GI Forum and worked on national presidential elections for fellow members. As a leader in the fight for justice and equality, he often brought members of opposing sides together and encouraged women to run for office within the organization. Henry played a pivotal role in the political careers of prominent Latino leaders, including members of the U.S. House of Representatives. He served as Chief of Staff for Congressman Edward R. Roybal and District Director for then-Congressman Javier Becerra. Henry worked tirelessly to ensure that both congressmen were providing the most compassionate constituent services to the people of downtown and East LA. He was also a mentor to many congressional staffers in the district and in Washington, D.C. Henry was the true definition of a dedicated public servant who always was there to listen, counsel, and uplift anyone in need. He loved serving the community and dedicated his life to protecting the poor and disenfranchised. Henry was a leader in the Latino community and will be remembered for his commitment to seeking equality for all people. He was a loving father, grandfather, great-grandfather, uncle, cousin, and friend. Henry is survived by his wife, Isabel, siblings Sam, Robert, and Alice, grandchildren Tricia, Ashley, Lainey, and Hank Jr., and great-grandchildren Travis, Sydney, Elizabeth, Becca, and Gabriel. May he rest in power.
Thank you. We are so adjourned.